we're counting down 10 of the most popular board games as of April 2018. Now, 7 different games reached #1 on our list this past month, but did any of them stay high enough, long enough on the list to end Gloom Haven's 5-month run as the #1 game? Well, we'll find out as we count down this month's list. Hey, I'm Chaz from Pair of Dice Paradise, and welcome to this month's Top 10, which is based on the top 10 board games that have been getting the most buzz on BoardGameGeek.com's hottest games list over the past 30 days. These are the games that are generating the most traffic and discussion on that website. And starting off this month's list in spot number 10 is Gaia Project. In Gaia Project, players forge a galactic empire, taking command of one of 14 different factions to compete to colonize the galaxy. Players spread their influence by claiming planets, building structures, developing new technologies, and uniting their planets in federations. The Gaia Project slips down from its peak at number 5 last month, but it is still a very commendable showing in spot number 10. Dropping down from spot number 6 to 9 this month is SCYTHE, a game of farming and war, innovation and valor, and giant mechs, all set in an alternate 1920s timeline. Now, SCYTHE has appeared on our countdown every single month for the past 9 months, but still has not reached #1. However, a variation of SCYTHE did reach #1 on the BGG Hotness list on March 13th. The SCYTHE My Little Pony hybrid, My Little Scythe. Designed by Hobie Chow, My Little Scythe is a family-friendly remake of SCYTHE set in the world of My Little Pony. In this version, players control teams of ponies searching for apples and magical gems while completing quests and making deliveries all along the way. My Little Scythe was originally a homemade game developed just for personal use. But then, based partly in response to social media interest and requests, a free print-and-play version of it was released in June of 2017. And while My Little Scythe wasn't able to dethrone Gloom Haven as the #1 game this month, its designer still does have something big planned for it, announcing that there's a special update for My Little Scythe coming in May. Well, next up is Arkham Horror the Card Game, which retains a place on the first half of this month's countdown, coming in at spot number 8 for the month. Now, the Arkham Horror card game has appeared on our countdown quite a few times, always kind of in the middle and never quite reaching #1. Another game, though, that has swooped into the hotness last month was Batman Gotham City Chronicles. In Batman Gotham City Chronicles, one villain faces off against a team of heroes in one of multiple scenarios. Each hero has a differing set of strengths and abilities, and these strengths are represented by colored dice with different values. The more energy a hero spends on an ability, more dice that they're going to have of that color that they can roll. So, while Batman wasn't able to dethrone Gloom Haven from the #1 spot this month either, we'll soon discover the next challenger as the countdown rolls on. Okay, after spending a month away from the top 10, Azul returns by securing a spot in slot number 7 on this month's countdown. In Azul, which recently won several different awards and nominations, players take turns drafting colored tiles from suppliers to play onto their board. And later in the round, players score points based on how they've placed their tiles to decorate the palace that they are collectively working on to restore. And extra points are scored for specific patterns and completing sets, but wasted supplies will harm the player's score. Now, over the past few months, Azul's performance on the hotness list has demonstrated how this little abstract game has some real staying power. Now, does it have enough to stay in the top 10 in the months to come? Well, we'll find out. Oh, another game that managed to temporarily knock Gloom Haven out of its #1 spot for the month is a game that's making its debut on the top 10, The City of Kings. And while this game didn't rank high enough long enough on the hotness to remain in the top spot for the month, it finishes out at number 6, which is still quite commendable. The City of Kings is a cooperative tactical role-playing board game for 1 to 4 players in which the characters are tasked with exploring a hazardous world, trade for vital resources, and battle their enemies whilst uncovering a story of an imperiled world. Another interesting thing about this game is that the creatures that players will encounter during the game are generated by a pool of different spells, characteristics, and stats, which altogether offer over 10 million unique battle situations. So with so many possibilities, it's up to the players to customize and work together to come up with a strategy to defeat whoever, or whatever, ends up standing in their way. Alright, we are midway through the countdown, which is a great spot to take a moment to say thank you to all the people who are viewing, because videos like this are made possible by viewers like you who are helping fund Pair of Dice Paradise's 2018 season. Check this video's description for a link if you would like to support the channel as well. And whether you financially support Pair of Dice Paradise or just click the subscribe button, it's all appreciated, and it all helps to create more videos just like this one. So, thank you! And now, on with the countdown. Holding on to its position in the middle of the countdown this month in spot number 5 is Spirit Island. Spirit Island is a cooperative game in which the players are spirits defending their island home from colonizing invaders. Greater Than Games, the publisher of Spirit Island, recently provided several bits of trivia about the game's design and development. For example, they elaborated on the history behind the Dahan, stating that prior to the arrival of the invaders, the Dahan living on the coasts were generally more settled than those living inland, because they could primarily feed themselves with fishing, and their villages could stay in the same places for decades, with dwellings built to last longer than the intentionally temporary structures of the interior. Since the invaders arrived, they have again taken up the more mobile nomadic customs still followed by the inland Dahan, as the invaders appropriate the prime fishing grounds and natural harbors at which their fixed villages were built. It's always interesting to see how much history and development and background can go into so many of the characteristics and details of a lot of these games that we play, which are often not even obvious in the final design that hits the table. So big thanks to Greater Than Games for sharing all that trivia about Spirit Island, and I hope to be able to include more kind of interesting tidbits and trivia about other games in the countdown in the months to come. Coming in at spot number 4 on the countdown is the omnipresent fan favorite Terraforming Mars, in which various corporations invade the Red Planet in order to transform it from a place that's bad for riding segways to one that can support human life. And speaking of human invaders and bad segways, another game that temporarily kicked Gloom Haven out of the #1 spot this month was the upcoming sci-fi space-themed zombie survival game, Zombicide Invader. Zombicide Invader is a cooperative game in which 1 to 6 players face Xenos, an unfathomable swarm of infected monstrosities controlled by the game itself. Each player takes on the role of 1 to 6 survivors in a sci-fi setting with a simple, shared set of goals. Choose a mission, complete its objectives, kill as many Xenos as possible, and, most importantly, survive. Zombicide Invader finishes the month in spot number 28 on our countdown. But will this game find the strength to rise again and come back to the top 10 in the future? Well, we'll find out. Man, that was a bad segue. Another game that reappears on the countdown this month is The Seventh Continent, a solo or cooperative choose-your-own-adventure exploration board game. The Seventh Continent is a massive, card-driven story-adventure game that is astoundingly ambitious, offering up to 1,000 minutes of story-driven scenarios to play through. And a game that may be the Seventh Continent's polar opposite temporarily reached the top of the hotness charts this month, the cooperative card game, The Mind. The Mind is played over several rounds, and each player starts each round with a hand of cards equal to its number. For example, 1 card in round 1 and 2 cards in round number 2, and so on and so forth. These cards must then be played to a shared discard pile in ascending order. However, players cannot communicate with one another in any way as they do so. Now, if players can discard all their cards in the proper order throughout all of the rounds, they win. But if not, they don't win. The Mind exploded up the hotness charts a few weeks ago and settles in at spot number 22 overall for the month. Now holding steady in slot number 2 for a second month in a row is Rising Sun, the territory control game utilizing honor, negotiation, and warfare based in feudal Japan where the ancient gods have returned to rebuild their empires. Another game that puts players in an epic struggle for control is Imperius, which reached number 1 on the hotness list in late March and finishes the month overall in spot number 23. In Imperius, players draft cards which provide them with ambassadors, assassins, elders, nobles, and even powerful variable events that can be put into play. Players then deploy their cards to planets with the hopes of scoring victory points while depriving their enemies of the same. Some cards are played face up for all to see, but some cards will be deployed face down, adding a nice dash of tension to the proceedings. The game continues until one player takes the Crown Imperius and uses it to rule over the entire universe, which would make sense as a good place to stop the game. Now, will Imperius return to our countdown to rule over it as well? Well, maybe, but not this month, because this month, the game in the number 1 slot is... Now, even with giving up its seat at the top spot to several other games a half a dozen times throughout the course of last month, Gloom Haven remained in the countdown high enough for long enough to retain its position in spot number 1 for a 6th month in a row. Now, in case you've somehow missed Gloom Haven in previous months, it's a game of Euro-inspired tactical combat in a persistent world of shifting motives. Players will take on the role of a wandering adventurer with their own special set of skills and their own reasons for traveling to this dark corner of the world. Players must work together out of necessity to clear out menacing dungeons and forgotten ruins. And in the process, they'll enhance their abilities with experience and loot, discover new locations to explore and plunder, and expand an ever-branching story fueled by the decisions that they make. It's epic! It's critically acclaimed, and it's still the number 1 most popular game on our countdown this month, Gloom Haven. And there you go, your list of the top 10 most popular board games as of April 2018. And for more top 10 countdowns, be sure to check out this playlist that's just chock full of them. And for more board game news, views, and commentary, be sure to subscribe and check out the other Pair of Dice Paradise videos. Until then, I've been Chaz Marler, and take care. Check the description in this video's description. Check the description in the video below in the video you're watching now, in the description below, you will still find a link to what you do. Even though it ends the month at number spot 13, reach all the way up to spot number 1. In Azul, which recently won players take turns, I didn't write down what it took. Starting off this month's list in spot number 10 is the game that's going to make my teleprompter scroll. Starting off the list this month is spot... There you go. Let's Gaia Project. And he keeps scrolling.